Welcome to the Accidental Experts Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Hamilton. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a child and family therapist. I have been in practice for over 15 years, and I'm also a mom of 4. So I know the challenges both professionally and personally. I'm so glad that you're here today to grow your parenting toolbox. Please come as you are and be ready to learn. My goal is to make you the accidental expert so that you can raise healthy humans. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're with us today. So we are going to be talking about the real costs of alcohol and parenting our children, especially when addictions are involved. We have an expert, Kat Greenleaf, who created and hosted the NBC's longtime running series, Talk Stoop, the celebrity interview show filmed on her Brooklyn front steps. Yep, the one with the bulldog that dominated New York City TaxiTV and USA daytime in the 2010s. Over 9 years, she hosted hundreds of guests, racked up 4 Emmys, launched countless adventures, and had so much fun. Then she got fired. After losing her job, she thought she'd never be back into journalism. With no other marketable skills and no idea what to do next, she entered into an epic dark night of the soul. Looking for a light, her family moved to the beach in Coney Island. There, Kat got serious about her own sobriety and began bringing recovery meetings into incarcerated and formerly incarcerated women and men. That work inspired her to found the nonprofit Restorative Housing Organization, RHO, is dedicated to training formerly incarcerated men and women to renovate undervalued New York City waterfront properties, which are then rented to Section 8 tenants. She loves it, but once a journalist, always a journalist. So she weirdly got name checked on Hacks last season, took it as a sign. Soon after, she heard her old friend, musician Steve Earle, talking openly about his sobriety on a radio show, a thing she didn't know people were even allowed to do. And she realized she wanted to be the one talking to Steve Earle about sobriety on a show. Soberness was born in September 2024. So with that, let's welcome Kat.
Thank you. I'm a big fan. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Okay. So we're going to be talking about how alcohol can play its way into parenting. And as we were talking, you also brought up such a good point about there is this mommy wine club kind of mentality too. So using alcohol while parenting is also kind of celebrated.
It is, and that scares the heck out of me, to tell you the truth, not as a sober person, but remembering when I was a drinking person. And one of my hallmarks as a drinker was, I'm fine, I'm not drunk at all. Very drunk, so to be like that when you have a tender little life in your hands is very scary.
Yes, totally. Okay, so from a parenting perspective, then, how do you think that raising children and addiction coincide with each other, or like how does that impact kids? What do you want people to know about this time?
Listen, it's a case-by-case basis, of course. An addict is an addict, whether you have kids or not. A parent is a parent, whether you're an addict or not. However, my oldest is about to turn 17, so I have a little bit of time under my belt as a parent, and I'm 12, almost 13 years sober myself, so I'm able to bring that experience as well. So what I can say is this. Addicts are the best justifiers in the world. We just, we can come up with a reason for anything. And as a parent, it is our number one job. It's our number one job. We have been entrusted by, if you believe in God, in my case, actually, both my sons are adopted. And I was literally entrusted by 2 people to parent these children. And that's a huge honor. And it's something I'd waited for my whole life. And for me, it was a matter of, wow, I was hired to do this job that I prayed for, begged for, wanted. And I'm blowing it. I am blowing it. And if there was an HR department in my family, I'd be fired. And that's not something I could live with. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean that for everybody. Everybody can think of their own addiction, their own parenting. Of course, everyone will think of it in their own way. But I believe we are beholden to our stakeholders, our children, our community. If God forbid anything happened to that kid on your watch, no one wants to live like that. I'll tell you, I bring recovery meetings into prisons, and there are so many women who couldn't get their addiction under control and are now behind bars, away from their children, having maybe taken the life of someone else's child. The guilt is so heavy. It's so heavy. Nobody wants that. So I would, for all the reasons, it's good to get sober if you're an addict. Being a parent is the number one.
So can I ask you a personal question?
Bring it.
Yeah. Okay. So what was the point where you transformed? So like, I mean, I know addicts, I mean, yeah, you can justify anything, right? Like you can and mask it and disguise it as something else as much as you want, right? But then there has to be a moment where you're like, okay, enough is enough. What was it for you?
Right. Everybody has to have a why, right? A why for why we do what we do. How come you're a parent? How come you do the job you do? You know, there's got to be a why that keeps you coming back every day. For me, in this case, so I knew before I ever drank, I knew that I was going to go off the rails and end up in recovery. I could just tell. I could feel that kind of need within myself for more. And when I first heard about alcohol, I was like, that is for me. I can't wait. And probably from the first time I drank, I got sick and I was clearly bad at it and I couldn't wait to just do it again. So when I had my first son, he was so calm, easy. I could drink my way around it. And I was scaffolded with a nanny and my husband's very supportive. And I figured it out how to do both. Then my second son came along. And not only was he one of those babies, those creepy babies that when they look at you, you feel like they know what's happening. And so I instantly felt like I was being watched. And I didn't want somebody with that kind of knowing to know that I was a slave to alcohol. And I wasn't even thinking at that point about the danger or about the, really the danger. So I just was sort of thinking I didn't want him to be disappointed in me. So the day that I stopped drinking, September 29th, I drank all day. And then I was going to a wedding that night. And that was the last time I got drunk because I just knew that I didn't want to go through my children's lives, giving them the same BS excuses I've been giving myself and everybody else who knew me. I just felt like they deserved better. And so that became my why.
I love that. Yeah. So talk to me about, like, this is something that I ask people who are experts in alcohol and recovery is like, there's like sobriety, right? And there's like harm reduction, but then there's like, I mean, and there's that piece, like, and maybe even people don't think about harm reduction. It's just like, I'm going to have a drink sometimes. What do you think about this?
I think it's great. I think so. Part of the reason I'm not really an expert is because I don't believe in complete abstinence if you don't have to. I have to completely abstain from alcohol. There is no one drink for me. And, I change. I become ugly and nobody needs it. If you were to hand me a weed gummy, sometimes I do my best parenting when I've had a weed gummy. So it's not often. In fact, now it's never. But early on, I never would have quit drinking if I couldn't have had marijuana. I was a lifelong alcoholic. It would have been so crazy for me to just give it all up. It wasn't in the cards. And I was very clear with everybody. I'm sober from alcohol. Not that it's anyone's freaking business, by the way, but I just like to feel like I'm telling it like it is. And so being sober from alcohol was what I needed to do. But again, I'm an addict, and the first person I love to fool is myself. So, but then the person you really can't at the end of the day fool is yourself. So were I to feel, and I'm just using myself as an example,
Sure.
but if I were to feel that I couldn't do it without a gummy, or I needed something just to get through this day, then we've got a much bigger problem. And we're not at harm reduction anymore. Now we're causing harm because every substance, no matter what, takes you a little bit out of reality. And when you've got little ones, or actually, especially big ones too, you don't want to be out of reality. You need to be right there.
Yeah.
So if you are able, if I'm able to do a 5 milligram gummy that just takes the edge off of a particularly crappy day, no worries, no harm, no foul generally. But if I were to need that in the morning and the evening, or every evening, or now it's 10 milligrams, I think the addict needs to take a look at that. And be really real. So now my kids are, Truman's about to be 14 on Friday, and Primo's about to be 17. And if I were high, they would know it.
Yeah.
They would know it. And no judgment, right? Like if you are cool with that, great. If you're not cool with that, then you might need to save your indulging for when you're not around your kids. But I don't think it's fair to say that just because you want to give up one substance means you have to give up all substances if those other substances aren't your problem. And that's, my sobriety has been a little unconventional, I guess, in the world of orthodox sobriety. It's not how I see things. So I think harm reduction is a great way to go if you can handle it. And it's the if you can handle it part that's really important here.
Yeah. And being honest with yourself about.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I think, our kids, or it doesn't matter what we're doing, our kids are watching us, right?
Yeah.
They're observing every single thing that we're doing. So, parents have said to me, like, well, my kids don't know that I drink. And I'm
yes,
like,
they do.
Yes, they do. They absolutely do. So whatever you think that you're hiding from them, and they may not know exactly what it is, but they know something's not right.
You know what a good piece of advice might be, or a suggestion or an idea for people who say that and think that? Those people should go spend a little bit of time in ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics, meetings, because then they'll hear the impressions that were left upon the people who are now so messed up over that they got to go sit in these meetings, and so it seems like if you don't think they notice, if you don't think it leaves a mark, go take a listen, because you don't have to be a raging alcoholic. You don't have to be a drunk driver. You don't have to be abusive to make an impression. And again, up to you. Is that the kind of impression you want to make?
Yeah. And I think most parents would say no, right? I think most parents want to do the best that they can.
Yes. And, look, at the base of all of this, at the base of addiction is being out of control of something, being ruled by something. So whether or not kids are in the picture, man, you don't want to live like that. Nobody wants to live like that. You shouldn't, it's a being sober from the thing that brings you down is just a better life. And I'm not saying it's easy. So just make that choice and get on with it.
Yeah.
It's not what I'm saying. It's very, very hard.
Yes.
But I mean, gosh, I love being free from alcohol. I love that noise in my head is gone. And I love that with that open space, I can be there for my kids and my husband. It's when you're in a family, it's a big organism, right? You're all part of the same organism, and you don't want to starve out any part of it.
Yeah. I mean, and I think when you're actively in addiction, you're just not thinking about any of those pieces. You're just thinking about the addiction.
Addiction is a selfish affliction. It is. You become selfish. You, even in early sobriety, I felt pretty selfish because I was like on edge and had to put a lot of attention there that could have gone to my kids. However, I had a lot more attention to divide up between my kids and trying to get sober than I did when I was drinking, because that really just took me out of the game or kept me in the game in a way that wasn't safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what the research says about kids who are their outcomes when they're raised by parents who are actively in addictions?
Well, I don't know what the research says, but I attend 2 online Zoom AA meetings at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. I just that's how my day got scaffolded during COVID, and that's just how I've kept it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, there is not a single meeting that goes by that at least 3 people don't talk about how their parents were alcoholics. So I don't know what the research says, but I know anecdotally, it really packs a punch,
Yeah.
Now, in defense of the alcoholic, every parenting style packs a punch sooner or later. Like, we're all messed up by our parents. We are all messing up our kids. That's just sort of a universal truth, I think, whether you want to or not. So, are alcoholic parents any more damaging than narcissistic parents, or, I don't know, than a parent that's never home, or, I don't know. I do know the particular flavor of this disease, however, and how it plays out in families. And because from a child's point of view, you can put down and drink. My parent chose that over me. If a parent's out of the house because they have to work because they need that money, maybe that comes with a different set of feelings. But alcoholism is not really a choice. It's not a choice.
Sure.
But to the outsider looking in this case, the child, it's a choice. And to feel like your parent, first of all, A, they're scary. B, I don't know who they are when they're going to come through the door, but C, they chose this other thing over me. This thing that maybe turns them into a jerk. That's a hard pill to swallow. Don't you think?
Sure. Yeah, totally. Well, and just thinking about also like missing out on things, or just like when you're a slave to alcohol, right? Like, you just can't do the same things, right? It's, you're maybe even making, we would say in quotes, like safe choices by not driving someplace, but then that might mean that a kid misses something, right? And so then there's just, right, or mom was going to show up to this, but then she didn't, or she was late picking me up, or whatever it was, right? That is getting in the way of you being able to be your authentic self.
Yes, it's alcohol is a fickle mistress. It really takes you away. And it's funny, as I'm hearing you talking, I'm thinking, okay, so the reverse of that for me while I was active was, I'm not going to be able to get to this birthday party if I'm not drunk. How am I, as opposed to saying, how am I going to get through that drunk? I cannot, and so that's how cuckoo you become when you're in active addiction. Another thing that just came to mind is, do you see the movie When a Man Loves a Woman?
Yes.
I mean, what a great one. That's a good one to watch for anyone who is actively drinking and has kids, if they're trying to figure out whether or not they should give it up. I still think about those scenes with the little kid. Anyway, it's such a good one. It drives it home. And I'm a big fan of pop culture informing decisions we make because it's relatable, it's easy to digest, and that one has stuck with me all these years. And actually, I had the opportunity to interview. Was it Andy Garcia?
I'm terrible with names. This would be a question for
the guy.
Yes. Okay.
I interviewed him, and I told him how important it was to me, and he said, of all the films he's done, that's the one that people always reference. That's the one that's important to people. So I think it's worth rewatching.
Yeah. I think sometimes people will say like, oh, well, I'm not an alcoholic, right? Or I don't really have a problem, but they really do. Like, the people around them see what is happening and it does look like a problem. What can you offer to people who are like, okay, I'm listening to this, I understand, like, if I was really an alcoholic, that it would impact my kids, but I'm not really. I just have a drink every once in a while. But maybe it's more than what they think, or like only after 5 p.m. Right? Yeah.
Right. I think reality testing is important. How many days a week are you drinking? To what extent do you drink? Have you ever gotten behind the wheel? Do you fight with your spouse when you're drinking? Someone might say, well, I don't drive when I'm drunk, and it's only while I'm cooking. Or, do you get short-tempered? What are the ways in which alcohol changes you? You wouldn't do it if it didn't change something, right? So what's it changing? And at the base of all of this is honesty. And you said it earlier, you do need to be honest with yourself. And maybe ask your kids what they think. You don't have to put it away of, do you think I'm an alcoholic? But hey, you see mommy have my red juice at the end of every night. Do you see me different? Find out, inquire. Information is empowering. Also, it is so hard to quit alcohol when you love it. I loved it. It was so hard. I knew I was an alcoholic and I didn't care. So I guess you do just kind of have to get sick and tired. All the AA cliches end up being right. You want to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. You want the gift of desperation. The hardest way to stop, or the hardest type of alcoholism to put a stop to, is the kind that doesn't have a lot of in-your-face impacts. You're not getting hungover. You're not losing your job. Your kids aren't going hungry. So it's, highly functioning parental alcoholism is the hardest one to stop, because, well, why should I? But I really believe in that still small voice. If you should stop. Think about the role that alcohol played in your household growing up, and how did your parents' alcohol use or your grandparents' alcohol use make you feel? Parents, not parents, whether it's weed or it's alcohol or whatever your thing is, getting sober is hard. And you have to kind of face these hard truths no matter what. And here's the other thing. Try it. Try it for a month. Give yourself a month. Just see. If you're not sure if you're an alcoholic, or you just think that maybe you can keep squeaking by, just try it. You're not going to die. You can give yourself a week. You can give yourself 2 weeks. I think a month is a really solid amount of time. So you can do some testing of your actual world. But it is to each their own, but I do believe it is we are all beholden to be honest with ourselves about our use.
So in that month, what are people looking for that would give them indicators that, like, I am not healthy with this?
Okay. More energy when you're with your kids, more focus when you're with your kids, making safe decisions. So are you driving extra fast to get to the liquor store before it closes while your kids are strapped in the back in baby seats? Driving is the one that really scares me the most, actually, when it comes to alcohol. I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of alcoholics over the years, famous, not famous, incarcerated, not incarcerated. It's the driving that makes us all feel sick that we did that, because it's a lethal weapon. And your family, someone else's family, when I think about how selfish I was to get behind the wheel. So that's one, is however when you're not drinking, are your driving habits safer? That's what I wanted to look at. But are your driving habits safer? Do your kids seem lighter and happier? Because, as you said, kids watch, they know, feel, they sense. If your kids are lighter and happier, if your spouse is lighter and happier, those are hard to look at, but good to know, really good to know, really important indicators that maybe alcohol is not your friend. How much are you thinking about it during the day? How much are you missing it? If you're missing it so much, this may be a relationship that has to end. You might have to break up with alcohol, because if it's consuming your thoughts, it's not healthy.
Yeah. Well, it's so hard, right? Because I think there is also this fear of, like, okay, so has your life, it sounds like your life has been the reverse of this, but has your life ended because you have removed alcohol from your life? I feel like there's a fear of, like, missing out too.
Yes, that's true, right? Like, what if your jam is getting together with all the other moms in the neighborhood at 5 o'clock every night and having that glass of wine? Look, if it's a glass, and you still feel like you need it and you want it. It's just, maybe that's really not that big of a deal. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it isn't. It's the excess. It's the alcohol to the exclusion of other things that I think we need to be on guard for. I wish I was a mom that could have one glass of wine at night. I wish. It would be awesome. It would be great. By the end of the day, we're all a little cranky. Oh, maybe not we're all, but I'm definitely a little cranky. So I would love to be able to smooth that out with one glass of wine. But as I said earlier, it's never just one glass for me. So I don't think abstinence is the only solution. Honesty is.
Yeah.
Honesty.
Yeah. I mean, because if you can't only have one glass, right? Like you can try to fool other people, but.
Right. Right. And if you're hiding it, even just talking about this makes me ill when I think about the hiding and the lying and the gaslighting, gaslighting that goes along with it. It's really bad if you gaslight your kids, gaslighting your partner stinks, but gaslighting your kids. No, mommy's not being crazy. I'm just happy, because kids get scared, when you don't present the same as you usually do. It's very scary for a little guy or gal. So I think, oh gosh, yeah. When it's getting to be too much, when you're hurting your kids, or at least if you don't really know, that month of time off, if you take that time to honestly reflect, it's also very helpful, I think, if you're working with a therapist or you stop in on a recovery group. I'm not saying AA is for everybody. I tried to work with some sort of drinking specialist type therapist, even long before I had kids, to try to figure out, can I do one drink a night? Can I? It was torture, man. Total torture. It had to be all or nothing for me, and it had to be nothing because all would lead to nothing.
Yes. Something really bad happening too. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So I know the paths of sobriety is not often just you choose it and then you do it. A lot of people try to get sober multiple times. And I think that can provide lots of shame or hopelessness after they've relapsed. Do you have any advice for parents trying to get past the shame and like encouraging them to keep going?
Keep going. That's it. You have to keep going. So alcoholism is so devious. It's a disease we don't ask to have. It is a disease. It is a disease. And that's, by the way, now 12, almost 13 years into sobriety, it's taken me almost until now to believe that. I was pretty certain that since I was the one reaching for the drink, I was the one pouring it, I was the one who knew I was no good at it, that I did have a choice. I guess, yes, you always have a choice. So alcoholism it's a disease we don't ask to have. But unfortunately or fortunately, the only way to stop having it is by making that choice. It's a wild thing. You really do hold all that power in your hands. Okay, so once you've decided, basta, enough, I've had it, I have got to get through this. Relapse is a part of so many people's stories. I relapsed early on and hit it. I didn't want to tell anybody. I hit it, and that was just how I had to do it. Again, it was the longest relationship in my life. I had drank for 30 years. Yeah. So I wanted, being such an extreme human being, I wanted to cut it right off. Wake up one day and just not do it, but that wasn't realistic. It was my oxygen, it was my safety, it was my friend. Yeah. So my advice is to be easy on yourself. I think it's also, I have found in the rooms of AA and through doing my show, it's very liberating to be honest about it. The reason I was by myself for 10 years in sobriety, I never went to a single meeting or anything. And when I got there, my very first time, I logged onto a meeting and someone was like, oh, I went back out after 4 years. And, I ended up the cops and it was terrible. And everyone starts clapping and like, we love you. And, that's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
To have your foibles and your downfalls, if not celebrated, understood and not judged. So whatever your recovery community is, whether it's just a person, and and maybe that person's not even sober, but just someone you can be honest with. There is a great power in saying things out loud, honestly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so relapse, like you said, comes with a lot of shame. This whole thing comes with a lot of shame, and then you like drink, you drink to drink away the shame. And it's just this disgusting cycle. So saying things out loud, whether or not it truly keeps you accountable, it helps to hear it. It helps to hear yourself say it. It helps to share it with someone else. It helps to get their feedback. And I go back and forth on this, to tell you the truth, because sometimes I think I just want to tell people, you know what? Enough. You've got children. Stop it. Just stop it and stop it and stop it. You're being ridiculous. You're being unsafe. You're being a child. But that's not loving and fair and kind.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a process, and I did go through it, and I have to remember that it's not about just stop it, but that decision, just make that decision and try to stick to it. Yeah. That's the first step. I don't know if that's the act. I'm a very bad AA. I don't totally know the steps, but whatever the first step is of like, for me, it's just make that choice. I do not want to live that way. I do not want to pass that along to them. I do not want to infect my community with my crummy behavior, whatever. Sure. It is, that choice is yours to make. Having alcoholism isn't. Doing something about it is. And I think we really owe that. We really owe it to ourselves, but we really, really owe it to our kids.
Yeah. Well, and I think just knowing that, I think the community part, I don't think we're meant to do things in isolation. I think we're meant to do them with other people. So like you said, whether that's a really big, full community in person or virtually, or is a smaller community or one person, but I think it's meant to be more than that. And probably people would be surprised as to how many people have been impacted by alcohol, whether it was their own or addiction, right? Their own addiction, or the addiction of a family member or somebody that they were close to, a friend. And I think a lot of us can really relate to how that impacts people. And we don't want that. I mean, I don't want that for anybody else. I grew up in a family that addiction was norm. It was what people did in Indiana. And from, my dad's parents were immigrants, and like they were from Ireland and just brought, like alcohol was the thing they did. And so I think, it can be very normative. Like we all, like everybody's drinking, but the truth is, I mean, and in these days, not everybody's drinking. That's actually untrue.
Right. That's right. That's right. It's not the norm anymore. It's not uncool to say I'm sober. And again, you don't really have to say anything if you don't want to. Going back to this idea of community for a second, I don't think I would have gotten sober if I had to be around other people. I'm really a loner. I really like to isolate. And alcoholics will tell you that's the worst thing you can do. I don't know. I love it. So for me, I had to get sober by myself because I wasn't sure I was going to stay sober, and I really didn't want to be accountable. And that's, of course, why you're supposed to be in a community. But
yes,
to each their own. And I really stress that because everybody's different. Everyone's different. So, and I don't know. I feel it's funny as I'm talking to you. I feel like I'm hearing this like chorus of recovery people being like, "Shut up! Don't tell people to be on their own. Everybody should be in a community." I don't know. So maybe I should stop talking on that particular topic because I do think no real alcoholic would say, "Go ahead and get sober by yourself." I just know that for this alcoholic, it was the only way. And now, I really do get a rise out of being part of the sober community. It's cool. It's cool talking to people, and you have a common language, just like drinking is a common language. I went all over the world drinking. It was my passport. It got me into conversations. It was amazing. Although it always ended badly. It always ended badly. But being part of the sober community is pretty cool because people who want to stop drinking but haven't yet think you're awesome. And so, I joke a lot that like feeling superior is what keeps me sober, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's really true. I love feeling because I have spent a lifetime feeling undisciplined, out of control, all the things you might think when you're an addict. So I love being like, yeah, no, thanks. I'm good. Seltzer. So I'll be fine. I love feeling that way. That actually feels pretty great. The other thing that keeps me sober, by the way, is watching YouTube videos of people getting busted for DUIs and kicked off of planes because they've drank too much. I do not want to be that person. I do not want to end up on YouTube looking like a total nutcase. And so I know it sounds silly, but it's been very powerful for me. I still keep it on in the background, or if I'm cooking or whatever. I just want to remember that could be me. That's why I bring meetings to prison, because that could be me. It always could be me. And so I love those reminders. That's really helpful.
Yeah. What have you taken away from your time in the prisons with people who have had such negative impacts from alcohol or addiction?
It's a heartbreak. It's absolutely a heartbreak, especially if you're a parent. Imagine not being able to parent your children the way you want to.
Yeah.
There are women, and men that I worked with over the years, people who just didn't want to pay the money to take a cab home from the club, and they wake up handcuffed to a hospital bed because they've taken out a family as they were driving back. It's and I used to drive home from clubs under the influence. As a young person, I did that a lot. I lived in LA, and this was before Uber, and everyone drove everywhere. And so what I've taken from that, well, first of all, being an addict anywhere is awful. Getting sober anywhere is really hard. But if you're a parent and you are separated from your kids, it is a particular kind of hell that I do not wish on anyone. There's a story that someone told me in an AA meeting that I'll share with you because it's so chilling. He had an older daughter. Maybe she was, late teens. So they were drinking together. They were at a party. There's valet parking. He went to go get his car from the valet. She was sort of pulling her stuff, the daughter sort of pulling her stuff together. He turns to go talk to the valet about the car. And in the meantime, he doesn't see that a truck is coming down the road because he's too busy being drunk and fabulous and looking just a couple inches that way. His daughter lost her life that night. And he lives with that. He was her protector. He was charged with caring for her and making sure she got home alive at the end of every night. So you do not want that on your conscience. And that hole in your heart is, I have to imagine, I don't know how people heal from that. I don't know how people heal from that. I'm actually going to school right now. I'm hoping to get my master's in forensic mental health counseling because there has got to be a way to, if not heal, then to reconcile within yourself. If you're going to live on this planet for the next several decades, how do you do that every day, knowing that you caused the death of your child? It's got to be so heavy. And, I've worked with these women now for a couple of years, and I keep saying, we let's work towards self-forgiveness. And they keep saying, Kat, that is not going to happen for us. So it really haunts me, man. It really is a scary thing to think about. I'm so like Jewish and paranoid. Like I feel like anything terrible could happen at any moment. If I could have, I have a backup camera in my car. If I could have cameras from all sides, I would, because I am so afraid of just something happening by accident. So imagine if it's not an accident. Imagine if you did take that drink and did cause that accident, cause that death. It chills me to the bone, and it definitely keeps me sober.
Yeah. Yeah. I think everybody has different things, but definitely taking the life of somebody else. I mean, that would be something that would be, I don't know that you could reconcile. I think you can learn how to live through that, but that would be very challenging for sure.
Right. Yeah. And then to face, imagine your spouse.
Yeah.
It's got so many tentacles, so many, and this disease has so many tentacles, even if you're not incarcerated, right? The repair work
Mhm.
that one has to do. And, and then it's an interesting thing because we circle back to this thing of it being a disease, right? Well, are you mad at someone who has cancer? Are you mad at someone who's broken their leg? No. That's such is the weirdo nature of alcoholism is somebody could look at you and say, listen, you didn't have to take that drink. You didn't have to. And so that's where it gets complicated and murky. And the shame spiral is for real, especially around 3 a.m. still. And I'm, almost 13 years down the road. And I still am replaying the majority of the cringe reels of my drinking years over and over in my head. It's, I would like to be released from that one of these days.
Yeah. Okay. So something I was thinking about is like, okay, so sometimes families are not together anymore, right? So there's two different households with two different parents. One parent who does not have a problem with substances or is sober, right? And then you have another parent who is not. Do you have any thoughts on how to navigate that? Because that's hard for the kids too, right? And then also for that parent to let the kid go to the other parent's house.
So this is a very nuanced situation. Backing up to, let's say, before the couple or while the couple is separating,
Sure.
if that's part of the story, be careful because if someone's trying to get custody or more custody or paint the addict in a particular light, it's easy to do so when there's evident use, and you don't want to be losing your kids to that. And divorces can get nasty, separations can get so acrimonious, and this is a very easy one to point to. Well, Your Honor, look at her sloppy every night by 6:30. My kids can't possibly live with her. I've seen it time and time again. So that's probably at a time when you want to drink more than ever. If you are going through separation, boy, is that a time to make sure that you are on top of everything and you're not labeled in a way that gets in the way of your family. So that's A. B, I think the fundamental challenges of two separate households and two separate parenting styles, two separate parents, is you have no choice but to let your kid go into the other realm, into the other person's, into how they do it for the days that they have the kids. So there's no, I don't know. I don't think that can be stopped, right? If the dad drinks and the mom doesn't, but the dad doesn't drink to excess or it's not a problem, then what can you do? Really, like, sort of what can you do except for ask them to be as safe as possible? And I've seen that play out time and time again as well, when that other person isn't safe, but they're not provably unsafe. And that's when it gets really scary, because so let's just call them the sober parent versus the not sober parent.
Yeah.
The sober parent has to share custody, has to let the kids go. It's ugly. It's so ugly.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a simple answer there, except that it's the same answer as if you're together. Kids first. Your kids come first. And, I've heard so many women, and I was one of them, that said, I love my kids more than anything. I love them more than anything. I'll do anything for my kids except for stop drinking. So it's not to say you don't love your kids if you keep drinking at all. No. We're addicts. It's like a tick. It gets under your skin, so that sentence alone, I'll do anything for my kids except drink, except stop drinking.
Yeah.
That's where we have to get honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
And do anything for our kids, including stopping drinking.
Yeah. So what we talked a little bit about this, but like what resources do you feel like are in place for people to start getting sober? So like there's the choice, right, to be like, I'm going to get sober. But like
Yeah.
what resources are out there that
And what do you
parents
do?
use to help them get sober?
So we live in an amazing time for sobriety because online support groups, you can actually be anonymous. You don't ever have to turn your camera on or use your real name.
Mm.
So I found these very, very helpful. And they're not all just AA. You know, I'm part of a community called Dopey. And Dopey is sort of the like punk rock anti-AA, but it's a loving,
Yeah.
supportive community. And some really good sobriety happens in there. So I'm a big fan of online recovery resources. So there's that. Then there's in person. I never had luck reading books or, just trying to like go it alone from nothing. Let me just hear other people's, read other people's stories or read this book about how to do it. That didn't really do it for me reading. I needed to, I don't know. I guess I needed, like I said, I needed weed. So that was how I did it. But that's not for everybody. So I would say healthier. Well, I don't know. Healthier ways probably are find online communities that work for you. In the beginning, I never spoke. When I finally got into AA after 10 years sober, I never spoke. It took me ages to start speaking. But then once I did, the support, the being known was so incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
So I would say let yourself be known to somebody, even one person. Like I said earlier, even if they're not sober, it's really, really important to feel like you're not alone in this. There's you mentioned being Irish. There's a phrase that I've come to know. I'm not going to say it in Gaelic because that will make it sound really awful, but it translates literally into "I am standing with you," and it's what is said at Irish funerals instead of "I'm so sorry for your loss." I'm so sorry for your loss, separation. I am standing with you, connection. They say that connection is the opposite of addiction. And it feels so good to even have one person standing with you during this time, preferably somebody who knows how freaking hard it is. I've never had a sponsor. I've never gone that route. But I do now call on my sober friends as a real resource because they know what it's like if I'm feeling like I'm white knuckling at a moment. And also, sorry, remember, as I said earlier about the cliches of AA, this one day at a time, it's brilliant. Like if today is a horrible day, you can do, if it's 1 hour at a time. I heard someone say on a meeting last week, it was 30 seconds at a time. Just get through this bit. It does get easier on the other side. It does. So in terms of what resources there are, if you don't have faith in yourself or in the process, lean on mine. Lean on the experience of all these other people who have done it. Millions and millions of people can't be wrong. If I can get sober, if this low bottom, disgusting drunk can get sober and really enjoy this life, trust me, truly anybody can. So I believe that. I never thought I would get sober. I didn't know how I could possibly. And I did it. And, you don't know me, your listeners don't know me. So it might say, oh, well, maybe she wasn't that bad. I was that bad. I was worse than that bad. I'm still a raging alcoholic. I just don't drink. And my life is better for it. Oh, that's another thing I just want to add here.
Yeah.
The term dry drunk gets a bad rap. And so what dry drunk means is you have stopped drinking, but you're not doing the work. You're not figuring out why you drank. You're not diving deep. And sometimes if you just stop drinking, that is enough. You don't have to go do all the other things. It's not fair. How come alcoholics have to do all this extra work, but regular people who don't have drinking problems aren't required to do all this work to be considered good people, So I take offense at the term dry drunk. Stopping drinking should be celebrated no matter what, whether or not you then dive into the 12 steps or years of therapy or whatever. So I guess I want people to give themselves a break and celebrate the wins
Mm-hmm.
and baby steps. But the most important thing is just don't drink.
Yeah.
Just don't drink. You know, I'm one of the meetings I'm on, that's this one woman sign off as everyone's saying goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. You know, don't drink. Like, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you do nothing else today. And for me, I had to keep reminding myself of my why. Primo and Truman, my husband, Michael. This is my why. More than myself. Because a lot of alcoholics, we don't love ourselves all that much, right? Because we're ashamed. We're so ashamed. So if in the beginning you're not doing it for yourself, figure out who's your why. Or maybe it's your job is your why. Or maybe it's your, I don't know, commitment to your animals, whatever it is. But there's got to be something that's important to you enough to not want to lose it.
Yeah. Wow, Kat, this has been so powerful. I so appreciate your sharing of your real life experience and your thoughts about putting our kids first and about the difficulty of getting sober, but that it is so possible.
It is so possible. And it's, you know, there's this, one of the lines I do hate in AA is, I'm living a life beyond my wildest dreams. I was like, that's crazy. But it is so true. It is beyond my wildest dreams. Sitting here getting to talk to you, beyond my wildest dreams. So, and by the way, my email is kat@soberness.com. If anybody needs to reach out, there I am.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kat.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Kat, for joining us. Thanks for being so real and sharing your story and helping us to learn and grow from your experiences. With that, I will say thank you so much for your time today. Please take a moment and share this episode with somebody that you think would benefit from it. And also subscribe to our show on whatever platform you listen to. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And keep the emails coming with future topic suggestions to our email at accidentalexperts@gmail.com. Have a lovely day. Some words from our legal team.
The information presented in this podcast is not intended or implied to be a substitute for appropriate professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained on or available through this podcast, is for general information purposes only. This podcast makes no representations and assumes no responsibility for the accuracy or information on or available through this podcast, and such information is subject to change without notice. You are encouraged to confirm any information obtained through this program with other sources and review all information regarding any condition or treatment with the appropriate professionals.
What we're saying is, yes, I am a real therapist, but I'm not your therapist.